Yeah, Speaker Mike Johnson now speaking in New York. Let's take a listen.
Is a friend, and I wanted to be here to support him. I'm here speaking with you outside because the court won't allow us to speak inside the building. That's just one of the many things that are wrong here. This is the fifth week that President Trump has been in court for this sham of a trial. They are doing this intentionally to keep him here and keep him off of the campaign trail. And I think everybody in the country can see that for what it is. I'm an attorney. I'm a former litigator myself. I am disgusted by what is happening here. What is being done here to our entire system of justice overall. The people are losing faith right now in this country, in our institutions. They're losing faith in our system of justice.
Hey guys, Adam speaking. Let me set the scene for you because you need to visualize exactly what happened. The Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the man who is second in line to the presidency, walks into a Manhattan courtroom. Within minutes, the entire room goes dead silent because a judge has just threatened to put someone in handcuffs.
Let's start here with House Speaker Mike Johnson also issuing an open threat to the federal judiciary today. Johnson saying that Congress has the authority to pull funding to federal courts. The congressman also adding that he is open to the idea here of potentially impeaching judges who rule against the president, saying that, quote, everything is on the table. Well, this comes as the White House faces high-stakes legal battles over the deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members and an executive order banning transgender service members from the military.
Not a hypothetical threat, not a distant warning. An actual, immediate, we will arrest you threat hanging in the air like smoke. And Mike Johnson, Donald Trump's most powerful ally in Congress, froze. He literally stopped in his tracks, went quiet, and for a moment looked like a man who suddenly realized he might have made a terrible mistake.
Forcing Speaker Johnson's hand on the Epstein investigation. In a major escalation tonight, the Attorney General of Arizona and Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva of Arizona are suing Mike Johnson. And they're suing him because Grijalva has not been sworn in. So what does all this have to do with Jeffrey Epstein? Because it does at its heart. Grijalva is the final vote needed for a bipartisan maneuver called a discharge petition that goes around Johnson. Goes around Johnson because he does not want a vote to release the full Epstein files. This would go around him, get that vote to release the files. Grijalva was elected in Arizona 28 days ago, a whole month. And Johnson has, in that time, used every excuse not to swear her in.
Now I know what you're thinking. Another day, another Trump courtroom drama, another headline you've seen 1,000 times before. But hold on, because this one is fundamentally different. This isn't some random hearing with obscure legal arguments. This is the Speaker of the House, the highest-ranking Republican in the country, standing in a courtroom where a judge has essentially declared that anyone who breaks the rules, anyone, could be arrested on the spot.
Look, we'll schedule it, I guess, as soon as she wants. It has nothing to do with...
As soon as the Democrats vote to reopen the government.
She deserves to have all the pomp and circumstance that everybody else does. Have her family and friends in the balcony.
But,
so if she flies in her family, would you guys do it?
All of us, she'll get the full bells and whistles. It hasn't been scheduled because we don't schedule things for pro forma.
And when Grijalva called Johnson out on not swearing her in and doing it, she says, to protect Jeffrey Epstein and his high-powered clients, Johnson had this to say.
Bless her heart. She's a representative-elect. She doesn't know how it works around here.
Well, putting the condescension aside, she does know she's supposed to be sworn in. That, of course, is democracy 101, right? You get elected by the people of your state and you get sworn in. That's democracy.
Come on. That's not normal. That's not politics as usual. That's a constitutional crisis unfolding in real time. Here's what went down. Mike Johnson walked into Trump's criminal trial in New York with all the confidence of someone who thought his title would protect him. He didn't slip in quietly. He marched in, found his seat, and immediately started working the room, talking to reporters, calling the entire proceeding a sham, attacking Michael Cohen as a vengeful liar who couldn't be trusted. Johnson went hard. He said Cohen's testimony was garbage, that the whole case was a joke, that this was political persecution dressed up as a trial. But here's what Johnson didn't fully appreciate when he walked through those doors. Just 24 hours earlier, the judge had made something crystal clear. Anyone who violates the gag order, anyone who disrupts proceedings, anyone who crosses the line, could face arrest. Not a fine, not a warning. Arrest, handcuffs, jail. And that threat was still echoing through the courtroom when Johnson took his seat. Are you kidding me? The Speaker of the House sitting in a chair where one wrong word could land him in a holding cell, and he still showed up. Now some people are calling him brave for standing with Trump under such dangerous circumstances. Others are calling him reckless for putting himself and his office in such a compromising position. But here's what nobody in the mainstream media is talking about. Why did he really go? What was the actual point? Because this wasn't just about supporting an old friend. This was about something much bigger. This was about the entire Republican establishment signaling that they will rally around Trump no matter what, even when he's sitting in a criminal defendant's chair. This was about turning a legal proceeding into a political statement, about transforming a trial into a rally, about showing the base that Republicans will never back down, even when arrest is on the table. Johnson walking into that courtroom knowing the judge had just threatened incarceration, that was the whole point. It was defiance. It was loyalty theater. It was meant to show Trump and his supporters that the speaker would risk his own freedom to stand by the president. But then something happened that Johnson didn't expect. The arrest threat was mentioned in court, discussed openly, and suddenly Johnson's entire demeanor shifted. People in that room said he went quiet. They said he looked frozen, like a deer in headlights, like a man who had just realized that judges don't care about titles, that handcuffs don't discriminate based on political power. And for someone who is usually so loud, so confident, so eager to fight, that moment of silence spoke louder than any speech he could have given. Maga world had opinions, of course. When do they not? Some Trump supporters loved Johnson's show of force. They said he was finally standing up to the system, finally showing some backbone. But others, and this is where it gets interesting, others were furious. They said Johnson didn't go far enough. They said he should have been more aggressive, should have called the judge corrupt to his face, should have dared the court to arrest him. Like, what? These people wanted the speaker to basically commit contempt of court on purpose, to turn himself into a martyr for the cause. That's the level of loyalty they expect now. Meanwhile, the other side of the aisle was losing their minds for completely different reasons. Democrats and legal observers were saying Johnson crossed an unforgivable line, that he undermined the justice system, that he turned the Speaker's office into Trump's personal PR firm. This is absolutely wild when you think about it. We're not talking about some backbench congressman showing up for a photo op. We're talking about the Speaker of the House, the person who runs Congress, the guy who's supposed to be above the partisan fray, sitting in a criminal courtroom acting like Trump's defense attorney while a judge threatens people with arrest. The whole scene was surreal. Reporters everywhere, cameras outside, security on high alert, and right in the middle of it all, Mike Johnson looking like he just realized he walked into a trap. Because that's essentially what happened. He thought he was going there to score political points, to make Trump look good, to solidify his own position with the base. Instead, he ended up looking like someone who got a reality check from a judge who wasn't impressed by his title or his politics. The timing of all this makes it even more insane. This happened right as Trump's trial was hitting its most dramatic moments. Witnesses were on the stand delivering testimony. Evidence was being presented piece by piece. The prosecution was building its case methodically, and instead of letting the legal process play out, Johnson decided to insert himself directly into the middle of it, like he thought his presence would somehow change the outcome, like he thought he could intimidate the judge or influence the jury just by showing up. Yeah, right. That's not how courts work. That's not how any of this works. Let's talk about Mike Johnson himself for a moment, because understanding who he is helps understand why this moment matters so much. Johnson became Speaker after that chaotic period when Kevin McCarthy got booted and Republicans couldn't agree on anyone. He was this relatively unknown guy from Louisiana who suddenly found himself in charge of a fractured caucus. He wasn't seen as a bomb thrower, he was more of a policy guy, a behind-the-scenes operator. But when Trump's legal troubles escalated, Johnson made a choice. He went all in on Trump, and that decision led him to that courtroom, the highest-ranking Republican official to personally show up at the trial. Think about that. The speaker taking time away from running Congress to sit in a criminal courtroom for a president who's already in his second term and can't even run again. That's either commitment or obsession. Now, the judge in this case, Juan Merchan, is not playing games. In the days leading up to Johnson's visit, Merchan had been dealing with constant violations of his gag order. Trump kept posting about witnesses, about jurors, about court staff. Merchan kept issuing fines, but Trump didn't stop. So Merchan escalated. He said the next violation wouldn't result in a fine. It would result in arrest, jail time, contempt of court with actual incarceration. That threat wasn't aimed at Johnson specifically. It was aimed at Trump and his team. But the timing meant Johnson walked into a courtroom where that warning was still fresh, still hanging in the air. And suddenly everyone knew that one wrong move could have real consequences. Imagine being Johnson in that moment. You fly to New York, ready to make a big statement, ready to show the world you're Trump's most loyal soldier. And then you realize the judge just said he'll arrest people, and you're about to start talking about this case publicly. That's gotta mess with your head. According to people who were there, that's exactly what happened. Johnson walked in confident, but as proceedings went on, as the judge reiterated his warnings, Johnson's whole demeanor changed. He got quieter, more careful, more aware of the danger. He stayed for a while, but he wasn't his usual fiery self. He looked frozen, like he suddenly understood this wasn't a political game anymore. This was actual law with actual consequences. Johnson specifically went after Michael Cohen, calling him a liar, saying he was seeking revenge. And look, Cohen's history is complicated. He was Trump's fixer for years. He did shady stuff. He went to prison. Now he's testifying against Trump. His credibility is questionable. Everyone knows that. But here's the thing. The prosecution isn't relying only on Cohen. They have documents. They have bank records. They have other witnesses. Cohen is just one piece of a larger puzzle. Johnson doesn't mention any of that. He just attacks Cohen's character, which is fine for a lawyer, but Johnson isn't a lawyer in this case. He's the Speaker of the House. And him standing outside a courtroom attacking a witness while a trial is ongoing raises serious questions about whether he's interfering with the judicial process, whether he's trying to intimidate witnesses, whether he's crossing ethical lines that shouldn't be crossed. The arrest threat is the part everyone's focused on, but think about what it actually means. It means the judicial system is so fed up with Trump and his allies, so tired of the games and the delays and the violations, that they're willing to use their most extreme power to maintain order. That's huge. That shows how badly this trial has gone off the rails, how much Trump has pushed boundaries, and how desperate judges are becoming to maintain control of their own courtrooms. And Johnson walked right into that, knowing all of it. Which makes you wonder, was he brave or was he foolish? Because there's a fine line between standing by your principles and putting yourself in unnecessary danger. And when that danger includes potential arrest, potential jail time, potential destruction of your career, you have to ask, is Trump really worth it? Other Republicans showed up before Johnson, some House members, some senators, but none of them had Johnson's title. None of them had his responsibilities. When they showed up and made fools of themselves, it was embarrassing, but not catastrophic. But Johnson is the Speaker. He's supposed to be a statesman. He's supposed to represent the entire House, not just the Maga wing, not just Trump's loyalists. By showing up at that trial, by attacking witnesses, by calling the whole process a sham, he abandoned that responsibility. He chose Trump over the institution he's supposed to lead. And that's going to have long-term consequences we're only beginning to see. This is about normalizing political interference in the legal system. Johnson showing up, attacking witnesses, calling it a sham, that's not just support, that's interference. And the more Republicans do this, the more it becomes normal, the more people accept it. That's dangerous because the whole point of having an independent judiciary is that politics stays out of it. Trials are supposed to be about facts and evidence and law, not about which politician can yell the loudest. But we're losing that slowly, piece by piece. Johnson's courtroom stunt is just another chip away at that foundation. The arrest threat is a game changer. Up until now, Trump and his allies could basically do whatever they wanted. Fines, maybe. Legal fees, sure, but nothing serious, nothing that would actually stop them. Jail time is different. That's real consequences. Judge Merchan putting that on the table signals a shift. It says the judiciary is done playing games, done being pushed around, ready to use its full power to maintain order. Will it actually happen? Hard to say. Judges don't like putting people in jail for contempt. It's a last resort. But the fact that Merchan even threatened it tells you how bad things have gotten, how out of control this trial has become. And it put Johnson in an impossible position. He went there to be bold, to show strength. Instead, he had to sit there quiet, careful, frozen, because one wrong word could land him in a cell. This exposes the Republican Party's Trump problem. They can't quit him. Even when it's stupid, even when it's dangerous, even when he's literally in court facing criminal charges, they still line up behind him. Johnson is the perfect example. He's the speaker. He's got real power, real responsibilities, but he's using that power not to govern, not to help the American people, but to prop up one guy's legal defense. That's not leadership. That's servitude. And they do it because Trump still controls the base. His endorsement can make or break careers. His anger can end political futures. So they fall in line. But at what cost? Johnson risked contempt, risked undermining the justice system, risked his own reputation, all for a photo op. This sets a terrible precedent. Now, every time a prominent Republican faces legal trouble, others will feel pressure to show up, to make a scene, to turn trials into political rallies. That's bad for everyone. It's bad for the justice system. It's bad for public trust in courts. It's bad for democracy. If we can't have fair trials, if everything becomes political theater, then what's the point? And it won't stop with Republicans. Eventually, Democrats will do it too, saying Republicans did it first. Then we're in a race to the bottom where nobody respects the courts, nobody follows the rules, and justice becomes whatever the most powerful people say it is. So what happens next? Trump's trial continues. More witnesses, more evidence, more drama. Johnson goes back to Washington, but this moment will follow him because he showed everyone exactly where his priorities are. Not with Congress, not with his constituents, with Trump, only Trump. And that arrest threat hangs over everything now. Every Trump ally who thinks about showing up at court will remember what Merchan said. They'll think twice, or at least they should, because the stakes just got real. Playing games with the justice system just became a lot more dangerous. Here's the bottom line. Mike Johnson went to that courtroom thinking he looked strong, thinking he scored political points, thinking he proved his loyalty. Instead, he looked scared. He looked out of his depth. He looked like a guy who suddenly realized he was in way over his head. In that frozen moment, that split second where he understood the danger, that's going to define him now. Not as Trump's ally, not as the speaker, but as the guy who blinked when it mattered most. This story isn't over. Trump's got more trials coming, more legal battles, more chances for Republicans to decide how far they'll go. And every single one of them is going to remember Johnson in that courtroom. Frozen, quiet, careful, and they're going to ask themselves, is it worth it? Is Trump really worth risking everything? We're about to find out.